My own son and daughter, the two people I'd sacrificed everything for, had just informed me that at 76 years old, I was now their burden. Too old to matter, too poor to keep around. "Mom, it's time for a facility," they said, like I was cargo to be shipped off to some nursing home. My hands shook as I held that eviction notice they'd orchestrated behind my back. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give out right there in my tiny Syracuse apartment. I couldn't breathe. But they had no idea I was about to build $1 million empire that would make them regret every cruel word. Let me back up. 3 months ago, I was staring at that piece of paper that would change my life forever, an eviction notice that my own flesh and blood had helped arrange. They thought they were solving their Margaret problem by forcing me into assisted living where I'd be someone else's responsibility. I'm Margaret Hayes, and I'm 76 years old, sitting here in my beautiful office today, surrounded by the business empire I built from absolutely nothing. But back then, I was just a broken-hearted mother who'd given everything to raise 2 ungrateful souls. You know what? If you're listening to my story right now, tell me in the comments where you are. Maybe you're having your morning coffee, folding laundry, or taking a quiet moment for yourself like I used to do. Hit that like button because each like is so important to help my voice reach other women who need to hear this. And subscribe to Grandma's Legacy, because no woman should ever feel alone when her own family turns their back on her. Now I'm here in my office, looking at financial reports that would make my son's jaw drop. But 3 months ago, I was sitting in that cramped apartment, wondering how I'd failed so completely as a mother. Let me tell you about the Margaret who gave everything and got nothing in return. I raised my son David and my daughter Jennifer back in the 70s and 80s, when mothers like me believed that sacrifice was love. We lived in a small 2-bedroom house on the east side of Syracuse, where the snow piled high every winter and the bills piled even higher. Their father left when David was 12 and Jennifer was 10. Just packed up his Chevy pickup one Tuesday morning in 1983 and drove off to find himself. Probably found himself a younger woman instead. That left me with 2 heartbroken adolescents and a mortgage I could barely handle on my secretary's salary at Mutual of Omaha. So I did what mothers did back then. I got a second job at Wegmans, stocking shelves from 6 to midnight. Then I added weekend house cleaning for the wealthy families up in Sedgwick. 3 jobs, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I wore the same 4 dresses to the office, rotated them like a uniform. My hands were always red and cracked from cleaning supplies, but I told myself it was temporary. David was smart, brilliant, actually. Got straight A's without even trying. Talked about business and money like he was born to it. When he got accepted to Syracuse University's business school in 1995, the tuition nearly knocked me flat. $18,000 a year. I remember standing in that financial aid office, calculator in hand, trying to figure out impossible math while David waited impatiently in the hallway. "Mom, everyone else's parents just write the check," he said when I explained we'd need loans. "Can't you just figure it out? Just figure it out," like I was a magic checkbook instead of a woman working herself into the ground for his future. Jennifer was my social butterfly. Homecoming court, student council, the whole deal. When prom season came around her senior year in 1997, she wanted everything perfect. The dress from that boutique downtown, $300. The shoes, the hair appointment at Maurice's salon, the professional photos. "All the other girls are going all out, Mom," she'd say, showing me magazine pictures of elaborate updos and designer gowns. "I can't be the only one who looks cheap." I said yes to everything, always yes. Took out loans, worked double shifts, ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so they could have what they needed. Wore the same winter coat for 8 years so Jennifer could have a new one each season. My back ached constantly from all that cleaning, but I figured that's what love looked like, giving until it hurt. David graduated summa cum laude and landed a job at a consulting firm in Albany. Jennifer became a teacher, married her college sweetheart Tom, moved to a nice suburb outside Rochester. Both of them successful, established, living the American dream I'd killed myself to give them. And for 20 years after they left, I convinced myself I'd done it right. That all that sacrifice meant something, that when I got old and needed help, they'd remember everything I'd given up for them. But children don't remember sacrifice. They remember what they didn't get. The warning signs started small, like they always do. David's phone calls got shorter and more businesslike. "Sorry, Mom, I'm in a client meeting," became his standard greeting. When I'd mention my arthritis or how hard it was getting to manage the stairs in my third-floor apartment, he'd make those non-committal sounds. Yeah, that's tough." Like I was discussing someone else's problems. Jennifer was subtler, but somehow worse. She'd visit twice a year, always rushing, always checking her phone. During her last Christmas visit, I watched her walk through my small apartment like she was touring a crime scene. "Oh, Mom, you really should consider downsizing," she'd said, picking up my collection of ceramic angels, gifts I'd bought myself over the years because no one else ever thought to. "All this stuff, it's just so much to manage at your age." At your age. Those 3 words became a constant refrain. As if turning 70 had somehow erased the capable woman who'd raised them single-handedly. The breaking point came last Christmas. I'd spent my entire Social Security check on presents for their families. Toys for the grandchildren I saw maybe twice a year, nice gifts for their spouses who barely acknowledged my existence. I wrapped everything carefully, the way I'd taught them to do when they were young, using the good paper I'd saved from the year before. David opened his gift, a beautiful leather briefcase I'd saved for months to afford. He glanced at it, said, "Thanks, Mom," and set it aside without even touching the leather. Jennifer did the same with the silk scarf I'd chosen specifically to match her eyes. But when their son and daughter opened their tablets and gaming systems, the room lit up with excitement. "Grandma Margaret, this is amazing!" my grandson Jake shouted, actually hugging me for the first time in years. That's when I heard it. David, talking to Jennifer in the kitchen while I was helping Jake set up his new device, thinking I couldn't hear over the noise. "We need to have a serious conversation with her soon," he said, his voice carrying that tone he used with difficult clients. "She's spending money she doesn't have on stuff we don't need." And did you see how confused she got when Jake was explaining that video game? "She's declining faster than I thought." "I know," Jennifer whispered back. "My friend Sarah just went through this with her mother. There are some really nice facilities around here. Clean, safe, professionals who know how to handle these situations. Like I was a problem to be managed instead of the woman who'd raised them." I spent the rest of that evening watching my son and daughter exchange meaningful looks every time I spoke. When I mentioned my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, David wrote something down in his phone. When I couldn't figure out how to work their new coffee maker, a machine more complicated than anything I'd ever seen, Jennifer sighed like I'd just proven her point. That night, lying in the guest room bed that used to be Jennifer's childhood bed, I stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars we'd put on the ceiling when she was 8. I realized the truth. My own flesh and blood were building a case against me. Every forgotten name, every moment of confusion with their technology, every sign of normal aging was being cataloged as evidence that I could no longer take care of myself. The worst part wasn't their betrayal. It was that tiny voice in my head that wondered if they were right. Had I become the burden they clearly saw me as? Was I just a stubborn old woman, too proud to admit I needed help? But I had no idea that their solution was already in motion, and that the help they had in mind would strip away everything I had left. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in February. I was having my coffee, watching the snow fall outside my kitchen window, when David's voice cut through my peaceful moment like a knife. "Mom, we need to talk. Jennifer and I have been discussing your situation, and we think it's time to make some changes." My situation. Not my life, not my circumstances. My situation, like I was a problem they needed to solve. "I don't understand, honey. What kind of changes?" "Well," he cleared his throat, and I could hear Jennifer coaching him in the background. "We've been looking into some really nice places, assisted living communities. They have activities, medical staff on site, people your own age to socialize with. The words hit me like a physical blow. David, I don't need assisted living. I'm managing just fine. Mom, be honest with yourself. When's the last time you saw a doctor? When's the last time you had a real conversation with someone other than that neighbor lady? You're isolated. You're spending money you don't have. And frankly, Jennifer and I are worried. My hands started shaking. Not from age or fear, but from pure rage. Worried about what, exactly? Your judgment, Mom. Your memory. Last Christmas, you gave Jake a tablet that was way too advanced for a 10-year-old, and you seemed genuinely confused about basic things. We think you might be experiencing some cognitive changes. Cognitive changes. They were questioning my mental capacity because I'd been generous with my grandson and didn't immediately understand their fancy gadgets. I want to come see you this weekend, I said, my voice steadying with something that felt like anger. We should discuss this face to face. Actually, Mom, that's not going to work. Jennifer and I are both swamped with work, and honestly, we think you need to start accepting help from professionals instead of leaning on us so much. Leaning on them? I called maybe once a week, saw them twice a year, and asked for nothing except the basic respect any mother deserves. That's when the real blow came. We've already put a deposit down on a place called Sunrise Manor. It's really nice, Mom. You'll have your own small apartment, meals provided, transportation to appointments. And the best part is, you won't have to worry about rent or utilities or any of that stress anymore. What about my apartment here? My things? We'll help you sort through everything. Keep the important stuff. Donate the rest. Mom, you have to understand. This isn't sustainable. You're living month to month. You can barely afford that place. And what happens when you have a medical emergency? What happens when you fall and no one finds you for days? They were painting a picture of helplessness that didn't match my reality. Yes, money was tight. Yes, I was alone sometimes. But I was functional, independent, capable. I paid my bills, kept my home clean, maintained friendships with my neighbors. But in that moment, if you're feeling the pain of this betrayal with me right now, show your support. Hit that like button, comment if you've been through something similar, and subscribe because we strong women need to stick together through the darkest moments. The call ended with David promising to coordinate the transition and Jennifer sending me brochures for Sunrise Manor. Beautiful photos of smiling elderly people playing cards and doing watercolor paintings, like prison inmates pretending to be happy for the camera. 2 days later, the eviction notice arrived. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the official letterhead as the pieces fell into place. My landlord, Mr. Peterson, had been calling them behind my back. Apparently, my rent had been late twice in the past 6 months, something that happened to everyone occasionally, especially people living on fixed incomes. But David and Jennifer had told him they were concerned about my ability to maintain independent housing. They'd poisoned my landlord against me, convinced him I was a liability, and now I had 30 days to vacate the apartment I'd called home for 15 years. But the final blow came that evening, when Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door with tears in her eyes. "Margaret, honey, I don't know how to tell you this," she said, wringing her hands. "But your son David called me today. He wanted to know about your daily functioning and whether I'd noticed any concerning behaviors. He made it sound like you were sick or something." My own son had been investigating me like a detective building a case, calling my neighbors, my landlord, probably my doctor too, creating a paper trail to prove I was incompetent. Sitting there with that eviction notice in my hands, I felt something crack open inside my chest. Not just heartbreak, something deeper. A realization that the two people I'd sacrificed everything for had been systematically dismantling my life behind my back, piece by piece, like I was already dead. But as I sat in that tiny kitchen, surrounded by the life they were so eager to dispose of, something else started growing in that crack they'd created. Something they never could have expected. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I pulled out every financial document I owned and spread them across my kitchen table like a general planning a war. They thought I was losing my mind. They thought I couldn't manage money. Let me show them exactly what this supposedly confused old woman was capable of. First, I called my friend Rosa Martinez, who worked at the Northwest Community Credit Union. Rosa was 72, sharp as a tack, and had been watching her own grown daughter treat her like an inconvenience for years. "Margaret," she said when I told her what happened, "those ungrateful brats don't deserve you." "What do you need?" What I needed was information. Rosa pulled my credit report the next morning, and here's what we discovered. Despite living on Social Security and a small pension, I had excellent credit. 47 years of paying every bill on time, even when it meant eating rice and beans for a week. "You know what else?" Rosa said, leaning across her desk with a conspiratorial whisper. "The Small Business Administration has grants and loans specifically for women over 50, especially women starting businesses that employ other women in similar situations." That was the moment everything clicked into place. See, while my son and daughter saw a declining old woman, I saw opportunity everywhere. I'd been cleaning houses for wealthy families for 30 years. I knew exactly what services they needed, what they were willing to pay for, and how poorly most cleaning companies treated their employees. I also knew something else. Syracuse was full of women my age who'd been pushed out of the job market. Women with decades of experience who were told they were overqualified for positions they were perfectly capable of doing. Women whose families saw them as burdens instead of resources. That weekend, instead of touring assisted living facilities like David and Jennifer expected, I spent Saturday at the library researching business licenses and Sunday driving around Syracuse looking at commercial real estate. By Monday morning, I had a plan. The first call was to Mrs. Eleanor Hoffman, whose house I'd been cleaning for 12 years. Eleanor was 83, lived alone in a mansion in Sedgwick, and had more money than she knew what to do with. "Margaret, dear, what can I do for you?" she asked when I called. "Mrs. Hoffman, I need to ask you something important. Have you ever been disappointed with cleaning services?" She laughed. "Honey, you're the only reliable person I've found in 30 years. Why do you ask?" "Because I'm starting my own cleaning company, and I'd like you to be my first official client." The silence on the other end lasted so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. Then, "Margaret, are you serious? At your age?" There it was again. At your age. "Mrs. Hoffman, I've been cleaning professionally for 3 decades. I know what clients want, I know how to train reliable staff, and I'm tired of working for companies that don't appreciate experience. The question is, are you interested in having the best cleaning service in Syracuse? When can you start?" That Tuesday afternoon, I signed my first official contract. Margaret's cleaning service would handle Mrs. Hoffman's house twice a week for $400 a month, more than I'd ever made working for someone else. But I wasn't done. Wednesday, I called David, not to apologize or explain, to inform him of reality. "Honey, I've been thinking about what you said, and you're absolutely right. I do need to make some changes." I could hear the relief in his voice. "Oh, Mom, that's wonderful. Jennifer and I were so worried you'd fight us on this. Sunrise Manor is really going to be perfect for you." "Actually," I said, and I let my voice get just a little bit sweeter, "I've decided to take care of the housing situation myself. Don't worry about Sunrise Manor. I won't be needing it." "What do you mean?" "Mom, we've already put down a deposit." "Then you better get that back, because your mother just became a business owner." The silence on the other end of the line was worth every sleepless night I'd spent worrying about their opinion of me. "Mom, this is exactly the kind of impulsive decision-making we've been worried about. Starting a business at 76? Be realistic." "I am being realistic, David. Realistic about the fact that I just signed a contract worth $4,800 a year. Realistic about the fact that I have 3 more potential clients lined up. And realistic about the fact that your mother isn't the helpless old woman you want me to be." I hung up before he could respond and started making the calls that would change everything. The fallout was immediate and exactly what I'd expected. Jennifer called within an hour, her voice sharp with panic. "Mom, David told me you're talking about starting a business. At your age? With your situation? This is exactly the kind of impulsive decision-making we've been worried about." "My situation," I repeated calmly, "is that I'm about to become the owner of the most successful cleaning service in Syracuse County. Would you like to hear my business plan, or would you prefer to keep talking about my declining mental state?" "Mom, please be reasonable. You can't just decide to start a company overnight. There are licenses, insurance, employees, taxes. It's complicated." "Jennifer, I've been managing complicated situations since before you were born. I think I can handle a small business." She hung up on me. David tried a different approach. He showed up at my apartment unannounced the next evening, briefcase in hand like he was coming to a corporate intervention. "Mom, sit down. We need to have a serious conversation about reality." I stayed standing. "Reality is that I've secured a business loan, rented a small office space, and hired my first 2 employees. Reality is that I have more signed clients than I can handle in my first month." "What reality would you like to discuss, David?" He actually opened his briefcase and pulled out papers. "I've been researching elder financial abuse and sudden personality changes. There are legal protections for situations like this. If someone is taking advantage of you, or if you're not mentally competent to make these decisions." That's when I understood the depth of their betrayal. They weren't just trying to put me in a facility. They were preparing to have me declared incompetent so they could control my finances. "Get out." "Mom, please be reasonable." I said get out. "And David, if you ever threaten my mental competency again, if you ever try to interfere with my business or my life, you'll discover that this supposedly declining old woman knows exactly how to protect herself legally." He left, but not before I heard him on the phone in my hallway. "Jennifer, we have a problem. She's gotten worse, not better. We might need to move faster on the guardianship paperwork." Guardianship. They wanted to have me declared incompetent and take control of my life completely. The next morning, I called attorney Sarah Chen, whom I'd found through Rosa's recommendations. By the end of that week, I had legal documents protecting my assets and my rights, and a restraining order preventing David and Jennifer from contacting my clients, my landlord, or anyone else about my competency. But I also had something else, a waiting list of women who wanted to work for me. Word travels fast in a community like Syracuse, especially among women who'd been written off by their families and society. Rosa spread the word at the credit union. "Mrs. Patterson told her church group. Within days, I was getting calls from women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who'd been told they were too old to work but desperately needed income and purpose. Maria Gonzalez, 63, had been a hotel housekeeper for 30 years before they restructured her out of a job. "They said I was too slow," she told me during her interview, her hands shaking slightly. "But I've never had a complaint about my work. Never missed a day unless one of my grandchildren was sick." Linda Washington, 58, had raised 5 children and run her household like a military operation, but couldn't get hired anywhere because she'd been out of the workforce for 25 years. "They look at my resume and see a gap," she said. "They don't see 25 years of managing budgets, schedules, and crises that would break most CEOs. Sandra Williams, 71, had been managing her husband's medical practice until he died, then discovered that 40 years of business experience meant nothing because she didn't have the right degree. "I built that practice from nothing," she said quietly. "But when I applied for office manager positions, they told me I was overqualified. What they meant was too old." These weren't declining old women. These were experienced, capable, hard-working people who'd been discarded by a society that values youth over wisdom. And I was about to prove exactly how valuable we really were. But first, I had to survive the war my own children had declared on me. 6 months later, I was standing in the lobby of the Marriott Hotel downtown, watching Maria train 2 new employees on our commercial cleaning protocols. The hotel manager, Mr. Rodriguez, was singing our praises to anyone who'd listen. Best cleaning service we've ever contracted, he told me, shaking my hand like I was some kind of miracle worker. Your team is reliable, thorough, and professional. When can we expand the contract to include our other property? When, not if. Because Margaret's cleaning service wasn't just surviving. We were thriving. That first year had been a whirlwind of 16-hour days, learning curves and small victories that felt like miracles. Rosa helped me navigate the financial side, staying late at the credit union to walk me through payroll and tax preparations. Mrs. Patterson became my unofficial HR department, screening potential employees and managing schedules from her kitchen table. The breakthrough came when Mrs. Hoffman called with an unexpected request. Her son was getting married in August, and she needed help coordinating the entire event. Not just cleaning, but catering coordination, decoration setup, even managing the vendors. "Margaret, you've been running my household for years," she said, over tea in her sunroom. "You know what needs to be done better than any of these expensive wedding planners charging $5,000. Would you be interested in expanding your services?" That conversation led to Margaret's home services: cleaning, organizing, household management, and event coordination. Within 8 months, we were booked solid through the end of the year, and I had a waiting list of clients stretching into the following spring. But the real transformation wasn't just business success. It was watching women like Linda discover they had skills they'd forgotten they possessed. Linda turned out to be a natural leader and became my assistant manager, organizing schedules with military precision and training new employees with patience I envied. Maria started a training program for new employees that was so effective, other cleaning services in town were asking to license our methods. She had a gift for seeing what each person did best and matching them with the right clients. Sandra, with her medical practice experience, helped us develop specialized cleaning protocols for doctors' offices and dental practices. Soon we were the preferred service for several medical buildings in Syracuse, generating consistent income that allowed us to expand. By the end of the second year, I had 12 employees. By the end of the fourth year, 28. Women ranging in age from 52 to 79, all of them told by the world that their productive years were behind them. The day I bought my house in Sedgwick, one of those neighborhoods where I used to clean other people's homes, Linda and Maria came with me to the closing. We sat in that lawyer's office, 3 women who'd been written off by society, as I signed papers for a 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-car garage and a home office. "You know what the best part is?" Linda said, as we walked through my new kitchen with its granite countertops and professional-grade appliances. "Your son and daughter are going to drive by this house someday and realize exactly what they threw away." But the moment that really mattered came 6 months later at our annual Christmas party. I'd rented the community center, hired a DJ, and invited all my employees and their families. The room was filled with laughter, children playing, and women who'd found their dignity again, sharing stories of success. That's when I saw him. David, standing in the parking lot, staring through the windows at our celebration. He'd driven the 2 hours from Albany, probably hoping to catch me in some moment of failure that would prove he'd been right all along. Instead, he saw 30 women who called me boss, families who celebrated with me, and a community that had grown around the business his declining mother had built from nothing. He never came to the door, just stood there for 10 minutes, then drove away. 3 weeks later, he called. "Mom, I heard about your business." "My successful business, you mean? I was wondering if we could talk. Maybe I could come visit, see what you've built." "David, I'm very busy these days. Running a company takes a lot of time and energy, but you're welcome to make an appointment with my assistant if you'd like to discuss professional opportunities." The silence stretched between us like a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. "Mom, I think maybe Jennifer and I made some mistakes." Maybe. Some mistakes. As if systematically trying to destroy my independence was just a minor miscalculation. "David, I appreciate that, but apologies don't undo damage. They don't give me back the months I spent wondering if I really was losing my mind. They don't erase the legal fees I had to pay to protect myself from my own children. What can I do to make this right? I looked around my office. My beautiful office with its mahogany desk and professional filing systems, the walls covered with photos of my employees and their families, certificates of appreciation from satisfied clients, and the business license that proved I was exactly as capable as I'd always known I was. You can respect the woman I've always been, David, not the helpless old lady you wanted me to become. Sitting here in my office this morning, looking at the expansion plans for our Rochester location, I want you to understand something important. This story isn't about revenge, though I won't lie and say their shock at my success doesn't bring me some satisfaction. This story is about dignity. It's about refusing to let other people, even your own flesh and blood, define your worth based on your age, your income, or their convenience. When David and Jennifer looked at me, they saw decline, burden, and inconvenience. They saw someone who'd outlived her usefulness, whose best years were behind her. But when I looked at myself, and when I looked at all the other women society had written off, I saw experience, I saw wisdom, I saw hands that had worked for decades and minds that had solved 1,000 problems. The difference between those two perspectives changed everything. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, support, and seeing each other's value. The 30 women who work for me now, they're more family to me than the 2 people I raised. They celebrate my victories, support me through challenges, and treat me like the capable woman I've always been. I also learned that starting over at 76 isn't just possible. It can be the beginning of your most successful chapter. All those years of sacrifice, all that experience managing impossible situations on impossible budgets, all those skills I'd developed raising children and running households, they weren't signs of my decline. They were preparation for my triumph. And to every woman listening to this who's been told she's too old, too set in her ways, too much trouble, you're not. You're experienced. You're wise. You're capable of building something extraordinary, even if you have to start from nothing at an age when the world expects you to disappear. David and Jennifer thought they were protecting themselves from the burden of an aging mother. Instead, they freed me to become the woman I was always capable of being. Last month, Jennifer called. Not David. He's still too proud to admit how wrong he was, but Jennifer, with tears in her voice, asking if we could meet for coffee. I saw the article in the Syracuse Post-Standard, she said, about your company being named Small Business of the Year. Mom, I'm so proud of you. Proud of me, after trying to have me declared incompetent. Jennifer, I appreciate that. But you were proud of me when I was sacrificing myself for your education too. The problem was never my accomplishments. The problem was that you stopped seeing me as a person worth respecting. We did meet for coffee. It was awkward, painful, and necessary. She apologized, really apologized, not the half-hearted, mistakes were made version David had offered. She's trying to rebuild our relationship, and I'm willing to let her try. But it's different now. I'm different now. I'm not the self-sacrificing mother who said yes to everything and expected nothing in return. I'm Margaret Hayes, CEO of Margaret's Home Services. I employ 30 women, generate over $1.2 million in annual revenue, and I'm expanding to Rochester next year. If this story of survival and transformation touched your heart, like this video right now, tell me in the comments what gave you the courage to rebuild in your darkest moments and subscribe to Grandma's Legacy. Because every grandmother deserves to have her voice heard and her accomplishments celebrated. Margaret's Home Services now employs 30 women and generates over $1.2 million in annual revenue. We're expanding to Rochester next year. And yes, we're hiring.